This morning, the Supreme Court is hearing arguments that could redefine who gets to be an American, and most people are not paying attention. This isn't a bill. This isn't a campaign promise. This is the actual process starting right now. And I'm going to be honest with you, I had to stop and really look at this because once this kind of case gets to the Supreme Court, you're not talking about politics anymore. You're talking about the rules of the country.
Yeah.
Today, the highest court in the land begins the real work on whether the 14th Amendment still means what we've always thought it to mean. And once that starts, the direction is set.
Justices will hear arguments on the constitutionality of President Trump's move to end birthright citizenship. On his first day back in office, Trump signed an executive order declaring children born to parents without permanent legal status would no longer be granted citizenship automatically. Last July, a federal appeals court in California ruled Trump's executive order, quote, contradicts the plain language of the 14th Amendment's grant of citizenship to all persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, unquote. On Wednesday, ACLU attorney Cecilia Wang will appear before the justices to argue against ending birthright citizenship. Wang has described herself as a birthright citizen, born in the United States to parents who emigrated from Taiwan.
I'm a second-generation American myself, so I understand the stakes for so many immigrants who are contributing to American communities and working hard to achieve U.S. citizenship, and who've believed in the Constitution's solemn promise of birthright citizenship. This is more than a legal case. This is a fight for what it means to be American, and we are fighting to win.
In 1898, the Supreme Court affirmed children born on U.S. soil are citizens regardless of their parents' immigration status. That case was brought by a Chinese-American man named Wong Kim Ark. He was born in the United States to parents who were Chinese citizens. Wong Kim Ark's great-grandson, Norman Wong, plans to speak outside the Supreme Court Wednesday. He recently spoke to Reuters from his home in California about his grandfather.
When he came back in 1895, he was stopped from entering the United States and forced to remain on the boat. The collector of customs decided that the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act was enforced, and he didn't recognize Wong Kim Ark's birthright citizenship, even though Wong Kim Ark, when he left, had testimonies that he was an American citizen. You know, he always had his paperwork because by 1882 he knew the rules.
Here's exactly what's happening. The Supreme Court is holding oral arguments today on a case challenging birthright citizenship policy tied to Trump-era actions. Lawyers for both sides step up to the podium. The justices question them hard. They interrupt, they push, they test the limits of the arguments. They're not making a final decision tomorrow. That usually takes weeks or months. But this right here, this is where you start to see how they're thinking. And if you've ever watched these hearings, you can tell the questions aren't random, they're signals. Every question, every hesitation, every pushback, it tells lower courts and policymakers, and honestly, people like you and me, where this might be going. This is not some abstract legal exercise. This is the first real test of whether a 150-year-old understanding is about to shift. So what's actually on the table? The idea that if you're born on U.S. soil, you are automatically a citizen. That comes from the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States. That was written after the Civil War. This wasn't random language. This was intentional. It was meant to settle once and for all who counts. And for over 150 years, that's how it's been understood. The Supreme Court backed that up in 1898, Wong Kim Ark. That case made it clear being born here meant citizenship, even if your parents weren't citizens. Now, what's being argued is a narrowing of that. The phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that's the focus. The argument is that some children born here, depending on their parents' status, may not fully qualify under that phrase. And if the court agrees with that interpretation, that's not a small thing. That's a fundamental change. Here's what people miss, and this is important. This doesn't start mattering when the final decision drops. It starts mattering right now. The moment the court shows interest, openness, even curiosity, everything starts shifting. Lower courts start watching closely, agencies start preparing, lawmakers start drafting responses. And institutions, schools, hospitals, employers, they start asking, what do we do if this changes? That uncertainty, it doesn't wait. It starts the minute these arguments happen. This is how big changes actually unfold, not all at once, but in motion. Let's bring this out of the courtroom, okay? Think about kids born here, in American hospitals, raised in American neighborhoods, going to American schools. These aren't hypothetical people. These are real families. A mother gives birth here. That birth certificate has always meant something. A teenager grows up here. That identity has always been clear. And now for some families, the question becomes, does that still hold true? That's not abstract. That's real. That's paperwork. That's school enrollment. That's jobs. That's future. And I want to be clear. This isn't about what you believe politically. This is about understanding what's being discussed and what the impact could be. So here's the question we're all sitting with after tomorrow. Is this just a legal clarification? Or is this the beginning of a fundamental shift in our country in who gets to be an American, who doesn't? And I'm telling you right now, this is one of those moments you don't ignore, because once the courts start moving on something like this, it doesn't stay in a vacuum. If you've never paid attention to a Supreme Court argument before, this is the one right here, because this one does not stay in the courtroom. This moves in real time and it affects real lives. You guys put in the comment section what you think, what you're feeling, and I will read it definitely, and I will see you guys in the next one.